while he was there, from what I understand, I've not been there. I wasn't allowed to go. But he was like, I guess they appoint certain people that have been there for a while to kind of conduct the little groups.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And he was doing that. He was, one of the leaders.
One of the group leaders. Yeah,
of
that's
the groups.
interesting. Yeah, he's usually selected by the counselors there. So
yeah, and got off the plane in Nashville, totally out of his mind.
Well, you all had gotten married, and at some point you then realized, this is before Hazelden, but at some point you realized he had a drinking problem. So what, did you talk to him about it, or how did that all work?
The first few times, of course, we were just dating, that I realized that Keith was a drinker, and I was in denial. I didn't want to say, Keith's an alcoholic. I didn't want to say that.
But did you think he was, or you must have?
No,
or you didn't?
I didn't at that time, because I guess growing up in the music business, everybody has their drinks and they party and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't relate Keith to alcoholism. I related him to, having a few drinks and having fun. Well, then the almost comatose situations would take place where I couldn't wake him up, and he would be gone, and for long periods of time. That's when I started realizing we might have a problem here. But for me, my heart was already so involved that I thought I could change it.
Well, that was a heartbreaking. I don't know if it's heartbreaking or not, but it's sad. I used to take a rope belt from a robe or something, bathrobe, and tie your leg to his leg at night, so if he got up, you'd know he was getting up to. Well, that's horrible to live that way, isn't it? I mean,
it was. Looking back, I don't know if I could have done it for the next 20 years, but I
mean,
loved him.
It's tough being a drunk, but it's
I
tough
loved him so much, and I thought, I knew basically when he had his last drink, and I thought if I could just keep him sober for the 12 to 14 hours so we can get the Antabuse in him, at least I can rest for the next little bit, because I know he can't drink.
Antabuse is a pill you take that will make you violently ill if you drink. I never. Well, then, boy, I was really intrigued. Of course, he died under, I guess, mysterious circumstances, right? I mean, do you suspect some
I do.
Foul play?
I don't know. And I know, I'm assuming that someday the pieces will fall together. It may be by accident. I mean, I'm not going out investigating, that's for sure.
Oh.
But someday the pieces are going to fit together of exactly what happened those last 6 hours of his life.
I know it was weird. I guess it was in your old house, right?
Yes.
That he died. He drank himself to death, but he was with some other woman, some older woman. His brother-in-law was involved somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But the house was all cleaned up.
Right.
Well, it's just, it sounds like not a Perry Mason deal.
Well, it's like someone...
I don't mean to trivialize it at all.
No,
but
it's like someone came in and cleaned up the tracks. It's very, very odd because, a man who's been drunk for a few days is not going to make the bed. And the bed was made, except one little corner of the bed was kind of pulled down where he laid down in the bed, and which is where he was found.
And you were on the road when this happened, right?
I was on the road. I was in Washington State. And, the weird thing, Keith's mother said she talked to him that morning around 9 o'clock, and he was drinking coffee, and he was fine. My brother-in-law came by and checked on him, so he says, which I do believe he went by and checked on him around...
That's Lane?
Yeah.
Well, he knows more than he's saying, doesn't he?
I believe he does. I think Lane... of course, Lane has been a recovering alcoholic himself for, I think, the last 5 years, 6 years, and doing very well, I might add. But I think that there are things that he's only dealt with in his private sessions. Maybe not even then or there.
No.
But I think he knows things that he is not.
What would you do if you had it to do over again? I mean, in terms of the alcoholism.
Well,
Talk about tough love and that kind of stuff.
Of course, it's easy to say now what I would do different. I was only, my 20s. I was a very young girl. Now, I mean, I guess I would have to go to the Al-Anon meetings. I would have to have some kind of strength, because I feel like at that point in my life I was the enabler, because I didn't know tough love.
Yeah, Al-Anon's an organization, by the way, for the people who are either live or have some relationship with an alcoholic, and it's an organization that helps you. Well, helps you deal with it. So.
It does, and I think everybody has to deal with it, and at that point, I didn't know how to deal with it. All I knew was I loved him. I didn't want him to drink. I was going to help him not to drink, and he was adamant. No Al-Anon meetings.
This is one of my jobs is to sell books, but have you read this yet? It reads like a mystery, and there's a whole. I don't mean to make too much of this, but there's a whole deal where Keith had some attraction to pornography and there's something weird here.
And that's the whole thing. It's been bothering me for 8 years now, and I have dealt, and as I've gotten older, again, I've tried to put the pieces together and really figure it out, but
Has writing about it has that been like a cathartic experience for you? Kind of cleansed your whole.
Well, it's felt like, this big weight has been lifted off, because, it was my problem. I mean, I lived with this, and this is how I've had to deal with the problem. And up until now, I have not been ready to really
talk about it.
Say this is all that happened, but I've lived with it for the last 8 years.
What do you think?
But you're right, there is a mystery.
What do you think your fans are going to think about all this?
Well, I'm sure, as with any kind of truth, there are people who don't agree with the Bible. But that's the way it went down.
Did you think about it? I don't mean to make too much of this, and I'm not being silly, but did you think that, it's 8 minutes till the hour, we're talking with Lorrie Morgan, by the way, about her book, Forever Yours Faithfully. Did you think maybe that that you're telling them too much? I don't know, maybe, do I have some problem with this? Will all these people who write these books and reveal all these things?
It does trouble you, I know.
I know.
It makes you curious. That's, I think.
It's like the old joke the preachers have, they're having a revival meeting, and the people are testifying. The guy said, I cheated on my wife, and he said, Jesus loves you. And the other guy said, I cheated on my taxi. He said, well, Jesus loves you. The guy in the back says, I had sex with a goat. Yeah. And the reverend says, I don't believe I'd have told that.
Yeah, I don't believe I'd have told that either. Well, there's no animals involved in the book.
No, there's not.
And, actually, the thing about the book is whether
your fan's going to know everything.
We are human. Everybody is human. Everybody has their skeletons in their closets. Oh. But my life has always been open. For some reason, the world wants to know about everything.
Well, Forever Yours Faithfully, it's all there, believe me. We got just 3 or 4 minutes left here. You realize, of course, that I talked to Senator Fred Thompson here when we were in Memphis at our affiliate, and it was just before y'all had decided to, well, he's been very cranky since then. Are you aware of that?
I've seen him.
He's trying to ruin the president's life, And look at Troy Aikman. Troy, they're having a horrible season. So. Is Troy, did somebody tell me you said Troy was the love of your life? Or?
He was at the time.
Well.
I think, yeah.
No.
Yes, Don.
And Kenny Rogers. Now, what you wrote about all that stuff?
I'm just saying yes, Don.
Kenny Rogers. Now, here's what I like about Kenny Rogers. Remember when he was involved? Remember when he got in that big scandal over that what was it? He had some,
He's calling some 970 lines.
and had an 800 deal.
Yeah.
Well, what Kenny did, and I thought what everybody should do, is just came out and said, yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
That's what.
Well, that's exactly what I'm doing.
That lasted that Kenny Rogers thing lasted 1 day. He went on Larry King, remember? He just said, this is it. This is who I am. This is who I like doing it.
That's what I'm
now
saying.
what? You know, so.
You know, we're all human.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong. Well,
Well, you didn't do. I mean, there's not. I don't leave them people the impression because they can buy the book that you did anything horrible. It's just that everything you did do is pretty much here. You know.
no, it's not.
Well,
Believe me, there's another
Pretty much.
whole book, Don.
My God,
I'll be back.
Anyway, we've been talking with. Let me see if I forgot anything. I look at my notes here. If there's anything that I left out here, no, there's not.
No, there's not.
It's an intriguing book. I think there's a good. It's not my job to preach to people, but I think there's a good message here, along with all the stuff about country music and about you all working with George Jones and all that stuff, and Keith and the little stuff about Senator Fred Thompson and that stuff. There's a good message here for people who live with alcoholics because it's tough being a drunk, but it's tough living with one as well. So I think you did a good thing with that.
Thank you.
What's the single for your new album?
The new single is called One of Those Nights.
Oh, okay.
We just got off of the first single was Go Away.
Oh, okay.
And the second one is being released here in a week or so. And so
Well, thank you very much for coming in.
it has been a pleasure.
Good luck with this book, and it's all here. So, faithfully yours for forever. Forever yours faithfully. My love story. Lorrie Morgan, written with George Vesey, published by Ballantine Books, obviously available. Bookstores everywhere. And by the way, y'all buy it, and there's this is a pretty good deal for a number of issues, a number of copies. There's a CD in it, and there's also a cut from Keith Whitley, a song that he wrote called Tell Lorrie I Love Her. Anyway, Miss Morgan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lorrie Morgan here in the Imus Morning Program.
98.1, the
Repugnant person.
You mean physically?
Well, just in any sense.
every way.
In every sense. Where Sammy's not. Sammy's just a good old boy from Austin, you know.
Okay.
Just dumber than a mailbox, but
Yeah.
can't help that.
But he just slaughtered the I-Man on the air.
Yeah, he did.
Just awful.
I understand that. But he wasn't.
It was just like he was hanging out at the bar and he met you for the first time and didn't know what to say.
He wasn't offensive, though, did you think? I mean, he wasn't like Chinga. It's just Chinga is offensive and annoying and is a repugnant person.
Right.
Where Sammy's not.
You
No.
might want to punch out Chinga.
Sammy, you just want to get away from.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So then, therefore, I think Chinga still has the distinction
Okay.
of being the worst guest ever.
On that basis.
Oh, okay.
Well, all right.
You don't agree, Lo?
1 and 1A, maybe.
Well, all right.
It's close for number 1.
It's a
In
thing
other
of
words.
degree, but you're right.
Well,
Yeah.
all right. Well, it's an ugly situation, isn't it? I feel bad for Sammy, frankly.
Yeah, because he is a good old boy.
He is a good old boy. And the BB gun story, I thought was great. But
Yeah,
it took a while to get to it,
way too long.
40 minutes
Right.
before we ever actually arrived at that point.
Yeah.
And the punchline.
Yeah. And the punchline took longer even.
Terminable.
Well, it took a while, didn't it?
Terminable.
Well, then he was in Borneo, right?
Well.
And said you take somebody's eye out with that BB
I
gun.
mean, I know.
You hearing me all right? I mean,
It started off badly with the Billy Graham, Barry Switzer analogy. That was ugly.
that's a classic.
You know?
Yeah, just kind of.
I don't believe I'd have told that.
Yeah, I don't believe I was told that. All right, it's coming up at 8 minutes
brother.
after the hour. It's time for the happy birthday today to Arthur Schlesinger, the historian. He's 80.
Mm-hmm.
And old Penny Marshall,
How old is it? How old's Penny?
the film,
Too old.
the director. She's 55.
Is
so,
she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, it's time for the news, national news, world events, and here with all that is Charles McCoy. Good morning, Charles.
Morning, guy, man. NASA's plutonium-powered Cassini space probe that's so controversial everybody thought it was going to blow up and rain death and destruction on the planet is now on its way to Saturn. A Titan 4B rocket carrying the probe roared into space from the Kennedy Space Center this morning. 7-year, 2 billion-mile journey ahead of it. There were cheers in the NASA control room as Cassini separated from the launch vehicle and so on.
What did people think was going to happen?
Well, it's carrying 72 pounds of plutonium, and they was afraid there'd be some sort of a launch pad accident or something, or an accident. It might explode immediately after liftoff and pulverize the plutonium and rain it down on the state of Florida and render it uninhabitable forever. Didn't happen. So there have been all sorts of protests from anti-nuclear folks and that sort of thing, and it's fine.
It'll ruin your big condo down there, wouldn't it?
It would have ruined everything, yeah. That didn't happen.
No.
Bruce Gagnon is
The
coordinator.
only thing it would not have affected would have been Jimmy Johnson's hair.
Unless it glowed, I don't know.
Yeah.
President Clinton's response to the manure being thrown at him, and I quote him, "I've had a lot worse thrown at me lately," and he apologized for that memo.
The document was wrong, and it represented an appalling error of judgment for anybody to write such a thing. It has been decisively rejected by every American authority, beginning with the ambassador.
And as he had said, in response to the recently discovered Coffeegate tapes, the president said, and I quote him, "No one was more upset than I was."
Did was going to be on Silk Stockings Sunday night on USA.
Not now.
And we have a clip from that I'm going to play tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And Friday. And it without giving away the entire plot of this episode of Silk Stockings, it essentially my wife murders everybody in the show.
Yeah.
So, and the clip I'm going to play is a scene where she shows up in this hot little pink outfit to pick up the money from the old bag who she's blackmailing.
I'm
so,
digging this already.
It's good.
Okay.
Oh, it's great. So anyway, so that's coming up tomorrow.
Great.
And then it'll be on USA Sunday night. Silk Stockings. It's 17 after the hour here on the Imus in the Morning program. More Nixon and Sammy Allred stuff coming up as the president's fairly torqued up about that whole deal. Plus Andy Rooney on Dress Up Monday here at the Fan. If the management proceeds with their plans to attempt to try to hire Marv Albert, which is, I felt like I should have defended our general manager perhaps more than I did.
Yeah.
In delighting, but I do think it's amusing that Dave Checketts over at MSG referred to this attempt by our general manager to hire Marv Albert, which, by the way, the general manager denies, but as a two-bit cheap grandstanding move.
Nobody. Tipper, ground ball, up the middle, Council has it to Renteria. They got him. They got him. The Marlins are the National League champions. Say it with me, Florida. Say it with me. The Marlins are in the win column.
Say it with me. Shut up.
Man, is that lame.
Good morning. Mike Freed with Sports. Joe Angel the call. WQAM in Miami. Marlins beat the Braves in Atlanta 7-4 last night and take the series in 6 games in advance to the World Series. Listen to the Marlins clubhouse. Huge celebration there in the Marlins clubhouse. Makes you feel like you're right there experiencing with those players, doesn't it? One down note for the Marlins. Bobby Bonilla was on the winning team. That's right, Bobby Bo. He was also celebrating in the clubhouse.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm talking about. There ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
How much do you hate this guy? Holy mackerel. Make matters worse, he played well. He had 3 RBIs.
Boy.
There's always hope for a 4-strikeout performance in the series. Losing pitcher for the Braves, Tom Glavine, who had thoughts of coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Like I say, a play here, a play there, a break here, a break there.
Here a break, there a break, everywhere a break, break. Old MacDonald had a farm. E-I-E-I-O.
Yeah.
Marlins next play one of 2 teams, either the Baltimore Orioles or the Cleveland Indians. Ironically, those 2 teams are playing each other right now. Actually, not right now. They'll play each other a little bit later today. Game 6 of the ALCS. Indians lead the series 3-2.
It's very poor planning to have it this afternoon when they could move it to tonight. But
that's correct.
That's just...
But it's good for the kids, man. Experience that baseball playoff fever, don't you think?
No, I don't care about them.
No.
I care about whether I can see it or not.
That's right.
All right.
Whether it bumps up into my nap time.
Uh-oh. There's the problem.
So that's going to be the problem. So
Yep.
no. But, so I don't care.
That's obvious.
I'd like the Indians to win, though. Of course we would.
Why is that?
Oh, sure.
Because we hate Davy Johnson.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
hate Roberto Alomar.
Right.
And we really hate Cal Ripken.
It's enough.
So,
Just enough.
That phony.
yeah.
NBA
So,
news.
I mean, there's just a number of reasons, and those are three of them.
And three good ones, I might add.
Yeah, absolutely.
Three's
NBA.
enough.
I've been cup some of this Dannon light yogurt. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I'm hoping that it was a piece of fruit that I just...
What's the flavor? And I can tell you quickly.
It's Dannon strawberry,
It was a piece of fruit.
not a piece of bug or something.
No, it would not have been a piece of bug.
How could you tell what it tastes like the way you inhaled it, for crying out loud?
What do you have?
I too have strawberry, but a different brand, I meant. Mm-hmm. But I can assure you that was a piece of fruit. It's nothing for you to worry about.
You're amongst friends.
Well, the problem that we have with all of this is Charles told me one time that the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, allows a certain percentage of foreign matter into these packaged goods.
Can't keep it out. Can't keep out all of it out.
Ugh.
You will get an occasional something.
A bug leg or something.
A bug part. But it will be unrecognizable. You're not going to see a little thorax sitting there staring at you. You know what I'm saying?
Like
there won't be a compound eye sticking out of your yogurt, I don't think.
Well, how about when people find these mouses in their hamburgers?
Well, how often does that happen? That wasn't a mouse. Well, I guess it wasn't a mouse
Could
part.
have been mouse turd.
There's some fecal matter does. You're right.
Well, I don't understand how, we can send this rocket to Saturn.
I know.
And we can't keep bug ick out of our food.
I know. It's a conundrum.
Well, why? I mean, why don't we just say? Why don't we have a zero tolerance situation? No bug stuff in the food.
I
deal.
guess because it's just as an impossibility to keep all foreign matter out of the food supply and out of various products.
Does that make any sense to you?
Well, it's so inconsequential that it's nothing that would ever affect you, man.
It could be a bug eyeball or something, or a bug leg.
Yeah, but you wouldn't recognize it. And it would be in such the nature of it in the food would be so that you wouldn't realize that you just swallowed part of a bug. So it's nothing for you to worry about.
Well,
you're 50 years old. You've eaten bug stuff all your life, and why worry about it now?
You look great.
You look terrific. You don't look like.
Well,
anyone.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's unsettling, but it's not. It's the kind of thing that you shouldn't dwell on.
Deirdre was even telling me about some of these vegetables and stuff that you can't get the insecticides and stuff off of them. And,
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's.
how do you feel? You feel fine.
I feel all right.
Okay, so case
But
closed.
this thing I crunched down on.
Ugh.
was a part of a little piece of fruit. It was a little bit of strawberry.
How do I know it wasn't a bug?
Tell yourself it was strawberry and go on.
No, fruit doesn't
Move
crunch.
on. Move
Bumblebee?
on from this. Go
All right.
forward.
No, that was a bug. fruit doesn't crunch. That's gross.
Well, see, he's right.
It wasn't crunchy.
Was.
It wasn't actually crunchy.
I'd go
Now
back to
was
the
it?
bathroom
Admit
and
it.
put the old fingers down the throat if I were you.
It was crunchier than a piece of fruit should be.
Yeah.
Between you
Maybe
and
it's
me.
a little tiny piece of stem.
Yeah,
How's that?
I doubt it.
Yeah, or a
Could
leg.
be. 30 minutes after the hour, Mike Breen continues.
I don't know if I can. NBA news, John Stockton, who's never been injured, has missed 4 games in his entire career, played in 609 consecutive games, had knee surgery yesterday. The Jazz point guard will miss 6 to 8 weeks. But Jazz coach Jerry Sloan not worried about the comeback because it's not the knees, says Sloan, that makes Stockton great.
John has terrific hands. He has, as small as he is, I don't think anybody realizes just how big his hands are.
Those two are very close, and I'm sure he'll help with the rehab process. Stockton tries to get back to the NBA Finals with the mailman, where they'll probably face in the NBA Finals. No, I won't even say it.
No, please, just
The
stop.
New York Knicks. Go ahead.
Okay.
Just get out.
In the morning. How would you like to be able to read the morning newspaper in 10 minutes or polish off a
Family.
Good questions, man. filed yesterday in federal court in Little Rock, asking Mr. Clinton to, quote, admit or deny all of these various assertions, these 72 possibilities. And they'd be asking basically yes or no responses to these things. Did he do this, or did they do that?
Yeah.
So, and they're difficult. They're tough.
What are some of them?
Please admit or deny the following. On May 8, 1991, Defendant Clinton talked with Paula Jones in a room at the Excelsior Hotel in Little Rock, and no one else was present in the room. Please admit or deny at the Excelsior, Defendant Clinton directed Defendant Ferguson, that's State Trooper Danny Ferguson, to tell Ms. Jones that Defendant Clinton would like to meet her in a certain numbered room. Admit or deny at the Excelsior, Defendant Clinton exposed his penis to Paula Jones.
Come on here.
Admit or deny at the Excelsior, Defendant Clinton asked Paula Jones to have sexual relations with him, or words to that effect. All of it, admit or deny that Paula Jones has never had sexual relations with Defendant Clinton. Admit or deny that.
Where are we at reaching some determination, or at least revealing what this distinguishing characteristic is that Paula Corbin Jones is charging in this complaint?
Well, the very latest about that, I guess you would have to say, publicly, is Bob Bennett's assertion, adamantly, that there is nothing unusual at all about the president's genitalia or that area in which the genitalia is located.
Oh, okay. But we don't know specifically what she's charging, no.
Oh, no,
That's
no, we don't. Just that there is some unspecified distinguishing characteristic.
We had these rumors, didn't we?
We had a report. We had information from sources that cannot be, not for attribution, about what may or may not be the distinguishing characteristic, which is a U-turn situation to the left.
Well,
so to speak.
Yeah.
To put it crudely.
A sling blade weenie.
Yeah. A sling blade left leaning.
Whatever.
Limber.
What else is going on?
Well, probably a lot, man, as a matter of fact.
Never have so.
Federal investigator says John Denver's pilot's license, at least his privileges, not valid because he had been arrested twice on drunken driving charges, and as a result of that, the FAA had pulled Denver's FAA medical certificate, which is required to keep your license current. Denver died over the weekend when his small plane crashed off the California coast. Monterey Sheriff Norman Hicks, meantime, says John Denver was not flying, though, under the influence, at least from what he has been able to determine.
From all indications that we've been able to find, from talking to people that played golf with him, to saw him at the airport, to the person that dealt with him taking the plane out and getting it ready to fly, he was not drinking.
Toxicology reports, which would show any evidence of drug or alcohol use, are expected in 10 to 12 days. Federal investigators, meantime, are reassembling the wreckage of Denver's aircraft in a hangar at Monterey Peninsula Airport. Divers recovered the engine yesterday. National Transportation Safety Board spokesman George Patterson says the salt water had not damaged the engine. Patterson said there are no obvious problems with the aircraft's fuselage. The engine could prove to be a key piece of evidence in
around and land someplace or what?
No, just land straight ahead, but try to, land as softly, obviously, as possible.
The water?
Yeah, in the water.
Oh, okay.
And
try to get out.
Pop the canopy and hop out. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. But he didn't have that opportunity because somehow it went straight down. Don't know why.
What's the likelihood of being able to find out why?
Oh, they probably will.
Oh, okay.
The investigation can probably determine that.
Well, he should have been flying the thing, though, as you pointed out.
Right.
How many people fly planes? Do a greater percentage of people fly planes without a license to drive cars without a license?
I don't think so, no,
okay.
I really don't. Absolutely not.
And why?
And he did have his license, but his license wasn't valid because it wasn't accompanied by a current medical certificate, which had been pulled.
Don't they check that at these airports when you go fly planes?
You can, yes. There can be spot checks by FAA people who come around and want to see all your aircraft papers and look over the plane and check your papers.
What's that tone I'm hearing? You hear a tone?
I hear nothing.
No, I don't.
Maybe it's just ringing in my ears.
No, I don't hear a tone.
You don't?
No.
I don't.
Wait a minute.
crackle and pop. That's not the case. It's a bugs drowning.
It's a
Screaming for help.
It's screaming bugs.
Yeah, screaming bugs.
If you stick your ear right down next to your cereal, children, own organically produced food.
Okay. Well, I guess it's a possibility, I guess. But
Well, sure it is. You're going to have room for a truck farm up on your.
but you would think that they would have a way.
That a nation that can put a man on the moon.
And these packaged foods to keep the bug dew out of it, wouldn't you?
I'm sorry, but it just doesn't. Yeah, what it does for all practical purposes.
Are
of
people
course.
generally aware of that?
I don't think it's any closely guarded secret on the part of the government that certain bug ick and fecal matter and rodent hairs.
And of course, here's the thing that's is then occasionally they find like a.
Well, but that's.
A mouse in a hamburger.
Well, I mean, but that's not a common thing. I mean, you're not going to go to a supermarket and find 150 cans with mice in them.
You're not?
No, just mice parts, maybe, but not the whole animal.
14 after the hour. What else is going on?
One of the lawyers handling Paula Jones' sexual harassment lawsuit against the president says Mr. Clinton's sex life while he was governor is fair game. Wes Holmes commenting shortly after Jones' legal team filed papers in federal court asking the president to provide written responses to 72 questions.
Idiotic
yes, no,
questions, by the way.
Admit, deny questions. Among them is whether...
Billy Bob.
Well, I reckon what you're wanting to know is what I think about this presidential penis deal. I hear tell on the radio he got this thing what makes his wiener take shape like a banana. Turns way over to one side, like a real sharp off-ramp from the highway. Peyronie's disease. Some people call it sling blade weenie. I call it Peyronie's disease.
Yeah.
Regular Peters is usually like an axe handle. Narrow at one end, dull at the other, though some got's a little nub at the end of it. Them Jewish fellers got them deals what looks like little beanies. I reckon the reason they got them is make the little head look just like the big one. They wear them yarmulkes on their noggins, so I reckon that's why Jewish boys, when they're little babies, go to this moil feller, so they's can get a beanie on their winnie.
Fine.
Some people call it a circumcision. Jewish fellers call it a bris. I call it somebody taking a Kaiser blade and whacking off a piece of your Peter. Which sound to me a whole lot worse than that Peyronie deal. Though I reckon it could be a mite inconvenient for you, if and you got a pecker what ain't a pointing in the same direction as you're pointing. Especially when you're having your way with a woman. She'd have to stand in the next room.
Fine, Carl.
I guess it wouldn't be so bad if an it curving like that gave it special powers, like a divining rod.
Yeah.
It'd be good if the president could use his Peyronie baloney to find precious minerals with it, or water. He could make himself a little extra money, which he's probably gonna need once this Paula Jones finally gets him into court. Thing about it is, his divining rod don't point him towards precious minerals, but it does seem like it always ends up finding him in hot water.
Idiot. It's 18 after the hour. King Missile. Here on the Imus Morning Program.
I woke up this morning with a bad hangover, and my penis was missing again. This happens all the time. It's detachable. This comes in handy a lot of the time. I can leave it home when I think it's going to get me in trouble, or I can rent it out when I don't need it. But now and then I go to a party, get drunk, and the next morning I can't, for the life of me, remember what I did with it. First I looked around my apartment and I couldn't find it, so I called up the place where the party was. They hadn't seen it either. I asked them to check the medicine cabinet, cause for some reason I leave it there sometimes, but not this time. So I told them if it pops up to let me know. I called a few people who were at the party, but they were no help either. I was starting to get desperate. I really don't like being without my penis for too long. It makes me feel like less of a man, and I really hate having to sit down every time I take a leak. After a few hours of searching the house and calling everyone I could think of, I was starting to get very depressed, so I went to the Kiev and ate breakfast. Then as I walked down Second Avenue towards St. Mark's Place, where all those people sell used books and other junk on the street, I saw my penis lying on a blanket next to a broken toaster oven. Some guy was selling it. I had to buy it off him. He wanted $22, but I talked him.